The following program contains coarse language and images that may disturb some viewers.
We heard the news that they're actually gonna get to Kabul very soon because they're just in the border. And that's when it just hit me.
Police officers took off their uniforms, ministers fled their ministries, immigration officers went home, and then for a period we had total anarchy and lawlessness.
On Sunday, August 15, the insurgent army that calls itself the Taliban took the Afghan capital, Kabul. After almost 20 years and more than $1 trillion spent by the United States and its allies, the city fell with barely a shot fired.
It's just no one thought that it would be an absolute victory at this rapid a scale. It was lightning speed.
My family and everybody was panicking. They were calling me. They were like, Ariana, you guys need to get out of there.
People realized that the city had fallen. Everyone rushed to the airport. So you had thousands of people on the tarmac, and everyone was attempting to get on the plane.
I was just visualizing that I get up to the end of the ramp. I got the lucky cargo deck with 200 odd other people, and we just had to sit down, legs crossed. And as we took off, the plane takes off pretty steeply, and we just ended up in everyone's lap as we took off.
The desperation led to heartbreaking scenes at Kabul's airport.
It's a disaster, and I cannot believe that the entire world right now, they're just watching and they just left Afghanistan in chaos, just like that.
Me and my family are just waiting for visa to Australia. We cannot do anything. We can't do anything.
People of Afghanistan right now are living in a cage. Yes, I feel that. I feel we are in a cage. When there's no freedom, there's no rights, when there's no justice, when there's no little hope.
I don't know what the Pashtun word for clusterfuck is, but this is the most ridiculously outrageous screw-up that I've ever experienced or even heard of.
Some people inevitably will now begin to say that the Western project in Afghanistan was doomed. I don't think it was doomed, it was botched.
Tonight on Four Corners, the tragic saga of the fall of Kabul, told by those who escaped and those left behind. And how America's longest war ended in ignominious failure. On the morning of Sunday, August 15, Obadullah Bahir, an Australian-educated university lecturer, was at home in his apartment overlooking Kabul.
I remember waking up that morning. It was a very normal day. I had to go for a meeting, and I walked into the meeting. 30 minutes in, the meeting was wrapped up. I sat in my car, and as I got out, I realized I checked my phone actually, and I realized that the Taliban had entered the city, which were rumors actually, because they were just outside, but just that rumor was enough for the Afghan armed forces and the police and everyone who was associated with the government to just drop arms and walk away, which meant that people were in a frenzy.
Afghan Australian Saad Mohseni, the boss of Afghanistan's Tolo news channel, was in London speaking with his editors in Kabul.
By about 2 or 3 o'clock, it became apparent that something was happening or something had happened. And when we inquired, we discovered that Ashraf Ghani and his close aides had fled the country.
Afghanistan's President Ashraf Ghani has gone. He's left the country as Taliban leaders push for what they say is a peaceful transfer of power in Kabul.
We were talking to friends in the street, but also to members of the senior staff of President Ashraf Ghani, talking to a network of intelligence people who were tracking what was going on.
US-based military strategist David Kilcullen, who has advised international governments, was speaking to his contacts on the ground in Kabul.
And all of our military contacts on the ground, the Special Forces guys and the local commanders who were holding the line on the eastern and southern part of the city, immediately realised the game was up. And about a half hour after that, Ashraf Ghani was reported leaving the city in a helicopter flying to Uzbekistan.
He should have stayed on. He's the leader of a country. He should have risked it, and he should have managed the transition process, and there was a transition process in play. He fled like a coward.
Shortly after that, I was on the phone with his chief of staff, who was essentially abandoned on the landing zone with the president's bag as the president flew off.
And then, of course, the news that Ashraf Ghani had fled, triggered the total collapse of the government and the state. Police officers took off their uniforms, ministers fled their ministries, immigration officers went home, and then for a period we had total anarchy and lawlessness. The Taliban, who had committed to not come into the city, were forced to come in and fill that vacuum.
Just showing you again those pictures from earlier of Taliban fighters behind the desk of the presidential palace.
I was right up until the last minute quite sure that Kabul would hold out. And the reason that I thought it was because literally 2 days beforehand, President Biden promised up and down in an answer in the White House that the US would come with air support and all kinds of other support to enable the Afghans to hold out. And in the event, the US did nothing.
Thousands of people descended on Kabul's airport looking for a way out. Among the crowd was former Australian Army Major Robert Davis, who had been working as a logistics contractor in Afghanistan and was now trying to get out.
When I got into the terminal, there was just bedlam. There was hundreds of people trying to get to the check-in counter. There was bags getting thrown over the top of people to get to the check-in counter, and because the thought process was there that my bag's there, so you must give me a ticket.
Afghan parliamentarian Shukriya Barakzai was at the airport waiting to fly to India when her flight was cancelled.
And I saw a large number of my colleagues, like former member of parliament, current member of parliament, ministers, deputy ministers. And I was like, what's going on? One of my colleagues, he told me that, Taliban are getting into the Kabul. So that was like a kind of panic time. I was just laughing and I say it's impossible. But my colleagues say, no, it is the truth. Taliban get into the Kabul, and it was really shocking to me.
Pop star Ariana Saeed, a long-time campaigner for women's rights in Afghanistan, is one of the most recognisable faces in the country and a long-time target of the Taliban.